kids. They work hard to really help the kids stay in school and grow in that way.
Yeah. You can tell that we had a lot of fun there, as heavy as things were. Um, we've got a few pictures which capture some of the conversational opportunities that were significant. Just to mention that Alita is a photographer extraordinaire, so she wanted to capture a lot of these things, and we were happy that she did. Opportunities to talk about Jesus with people were brought about by the Holy Spirit in lots of different ways and lots of different places. It was like in our minds, it was like we are here to talk about Jesus. But as I thought about that, because it was conversations always led there, if most of the time. Um, but as I thought about that, that really needs to be our disposition here that that we're not just okay, let's gear up for the missions trip thing, but let's assume that every day our conversations with other people are going to involve Jesus. And so this first picture is Ophelia, who I'm talking with. Part of the backstory here is Ralph and Alita's sending church in West Branch, Michigan, made it possible for repairs to be made to Ophelia's home. She's a sweet grandma. She cares for her granddaughters. She herself is a widow in true need. And so um, she received a roof for, like the corrugated metal roofing and more substantial walls than she had as part of a project. This was before we came. And she also got a floor to replace the dirt one that she had lived on top of really for years. So she and I, and Lori too, of course, but she and I made friends, and we talked about the difference that Jesus makes in our lives and how God has been so very, very faithful. Ophelia, um, Lori and I guess I should say, is we will never forget Ophelia. I mean, upon our leaving, Ophelia gave us a gift from her house. Granted, it's a very, very unusual gift. It is a plaque, kind of a section of Honduran mahogany, a plaque with an eye in the middle of it. It is very odd, but it was a token of her friendship and perhaps what she had to give. This next picture, you'll see myself with a man named David, who I had met the previous week, and he had promised to come to the next service. And he was excited about being there, and he brought his family as well. The conversation was the week prior and after the service was about God's plan, what God would have for David and his family. And so we were kind of helping each other to, get a little bit better at each other's language. He had worked on a cruise ship for a couple of years, so his English was gaining. So David is among the young men and the men there that I'm praying for. And David is a good man, and he is a rare father in the home. And like Lori mentioned earlier, if it's 1 out of 20, I would say that might be close to accurate. There's on food preparation day, Lori will mention something about it, but when the families come to make up the food boxes that are given monthly to families of sponsored children, I enjoyed, what the Holy Spirit put together in these little gatherings of men there that were maybe looking for a reason, I don't know, not to get super involved in all the help. But I was sent out to kind of work the crowd. And I was just felt like, well, I'm just going to start conversations. I'm going to walk up to people. I'm going to say hello. And it's sometimes that's not the natural thing that you might want to do. But I enjoyed meeting these three guys outside of the food prep project. Jose, the oldest one there, is a grandpa, and he plays guitar for his particular church. But the point is for us all, like no matter where you are, if we express interest in other people's lives, it opens doors for discussions about knowing Jesus, because Jesus is interested in us. And if we convey interest in others, we're really reflecting him. And similarly, a number of conversations that came up while I was, outside where the big line had gathered for uh, lining up for the food distribution, the actual day of the distribution. There was a lot of people there. And this man, Jorge, showed up pretty much just to see what all the hubbub was about. Jorge had a challenging life, but he was not a complainer. He was a little reluctant, I should say, a little reluctant to go very deep in a conversation about Jesus. But planting seeds, one never knows sometimes how the Holy Spirit will use that. And then the final picture that I have here is after the food distribution was completed for the sponsored children's families, one of the regular helpers, his name is Luis, there in orange, he and I enjoyed this conversation. It was relatively deep conversation, surprisingly, when there's this language barrier, but it was about the doctrine of salvation. And so I was very, very glad for this discussion. Luis is a strong believer in Jesus who is asked to give devotional talks and prayer and different capacities at food packing events and other events that they do. And I was also very thankful that Ralph, my friend Ralph, came along and assisted with the translation. Sound Bible teaching is a need. It just is a need. And Luis, he has a good heart, good work ethic. I pray that perhaps maybe he might step up. I mean, Luis works in a textile factory making pants and T-shirts, but he also wants to be available to help. And maybe God will call him to doing a pastoral kind of ministry. Or perhaps it'll be a guy named Will or Danilo or David. Maybe one day might be the pastor that the church needs. The church needs a Honduran pastor. And so it is our prayer that God will raise up pastoral leadership there in the community.